Preseason AP Top 25 was released this week. Let's run through it quickly, Ted.
Hmm.
1, Georgia. 2, Ohio State. 3, Oregon. 4, Texas. 5, Alabama. 6, Ole Miss. 7, Notre Dame. 8, Penn State. 9, Michigan. 10, Florida State. Missouri at 11. Utah at 12. LSU at 13. Number 14 is Clemson. 15 is Tennessee. The Oklahoma Sooners check in at 16. Oklahoma State checks in at 17. Kansas State at 18. Miami at 19. Texas A&M at 20. Arizona at 21. Kansas at 22. USC at 23. NC State at 24. And Iowa at 25. Thoughts on the Sooners at 16, Ted?
I think it's about right. I think that's probably the spot they need to be. Um, they've got their questions. I mean, everyone's got the different stuff that they're working through, but I think that's a fair enough spot. They'll have plenty of opportunity to move up throughout the year. Pretty much play the top. Everyone ranked in front of them, they pretty much play. It feels like so. We'll have no worries about where we're ranked. Starting week 4, it's going to be on. You'll have a chance to move up big time week by week.
I normally, if OU's starting outside of the top 10, the fan base is not pleased. But I haven't seen much of a strong reaction to OU at 16. I think everyone looks at it and thinks about how year 1 went under BV and the improvement we saw last season. And now with, the new era in the SEC and some uncertainty on the offensive side of the ball, 16 feels, dare I say, 16 feels very fair
Mm-hmm.
for this football program. I did think, part of me did think you could see OU check in at like 20 because voters would look at the schedule and go, that is an absolute beast of a schedule. Let me rank them a little later so that my preseason AP top 25 maybe looks a little better if down the road OU drops some games during this difficult schedule. But it doesn't feel like that happened. This feels, once again, it feels very fair to Brent Venables and this football team.
I agree. I think it feels fair, and I maybe this is fairly normal, but this year it just seems a little bit different. But I think you could take pretty much number 6 all the way to about 18 or 19 and change those teams in any order that you want. And I think it's all about the same. I think most of those teams are going to be like if you just played those teams together, I think most of them could beat each other on a given week, depending on where the game is played, and maybe who's got a little bit more healthier football team. I mean, I don't think there's a whole lot of difference between like where you've got Ole Miss at number 6 and a Tennessee or a Kansas State or a Clemson. I think, those teams are in the high teens. I don't think there's much of a difference there at all.
Utah at 12 is interesting to me. It's just they're technically the highest ranked Big 12 team. I just wonder if I feel like there is this, and they've got 9 starters back on that defense. Cam Rising is playing his 7th year of college football. They're getting Keithy, the tight end, back. I understand all of that. Whittingham's a hell of a football coach. But I don't know. I just get this sense that people think Utah's going to come into the Big 12 and just push everyone around. And I'm not sure that people have been watching that much Big 12 football the last couple of years. Like, if they think Utah's the only team that's getting in 12 personnel and running gap scheme runs, like, have they just not watched Kansas State,
Kansas.
Kansas with the versatility of that run game, Oklahoma State? Oklahoma State ran the hell out of the ball last year with Ollie Gordon.
We're about to do it again.
Yeah, so it's just I I get this sense that some people still think that Utah's going into this air raid Big 12 and they're just going to push everyone around. All these teams they've never played before, all these road trips they've never made before. I don't know. I don't think Utah's going to win the Big 12.
Yeah.
And maybe that makes me maybe I'm kind of on an island alone there, but I saw them at 12 and I've got no problem with them being at 12, but it just made me think, wow, they're the highest ranked Big 12 team. A lot of people think they're just going to walk into that conference and own it. And I don't think that's the way it's going to go down, man.
Well, I think the biggest thing about this year, and we've heard a ton of talk about Oklahoma's schedule, and rightfully so. But have you looked at Oklahoma State's schedule? Have you looked at Utah's schedule? Have you looked? I mean, everyone in college football, like the top 25 teams, everyone is playing like there's a couple of exceptions, but most people are playing the most difficult schedule that they've had in a long time. Most teams, Georgia included, Alabama included, Ohio State included, Oregon, Texas, everyone, they're all included, are playing the most difficult schedule that they've had in a long time.
Did you see the tweet from OU's glorious SID, Mike Hauk?
Yes, it did.
He put a tweet out, number of preseason AP top 15 football opponents on each SEC team's schedule. 6 for Oklahoma and Florida. OU's, all 6 are SEC teams. Florida's got 6, but one of them's Florida State. You've got 5 AP top 15 opponents for Arkansas, Georgia, Mississippi State, South Carolina, and Vandy. 4 for Alabama, Kentucky, A&M. You got 3 for Auburn, 2 for LSU, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Texas, and Missouri. Big winner. 1 AP top 15 opponent on Missouri's schedule.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many different ways we have to say this and explain it. The SEC did OU no favors with this schedule in the first 2 seasons. And that's the thing I got to continue to remind myself is we got the same slate next year. So it is, I mean, it's a beast of a schedule, man. I don't know what else to say about it. The SEC said, "Hey, Oklahoma football, what are you made of?" We're about to find out.
Yep. Yep. But I mean, whenever you look at it I mean, there's a lot of schools that are going to play each other. Whenever you look at the top 15, the top 25, a lot of those schools play each other. And I don't think anyone's going to go undefeated this year. I don't.
I don't know if this is a hot take or not. I think both teams in the SEC championship game are going to have 2 losses.
I think that's totally reasonable.
Maybe that opinion would offend some people in Athens, Georgia, just with, I mean, that team has been an absolute regular season wagon the last couple of years. But I truly believe, especially the SEC and the Big Ten, but I think more the SEC, I think it's going to be like a mini NFL, man. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it may not feel good this season because there's going to be an adjustment period for all of us. But I think SEC fan bases are going to come to appreciate a 10-2 season and be like, oh my gosh, that was a hell of a year.
Yeah, I agree.
And maybe it ends up being an 11-1 team versus a 10-2 team. I guess that's possible. I could see Georgia going an 11-1, although their schedule is really hard, man. Their road games, their schedule is an absolute beast when you look at the road games.
Yeah.
So yeah. I really think it could be 2 10-2 teams in the SEC championship game. That will not surprise me at all.
You could probably say the same thing for the Big 12.
Oh, yeah.
Big Ten, I feel like maybe a little bit more spread out with the Big Ten, but not much. Not much. So yeah, it's gonna be a totally different year for a bunch of reasons. Bunch of new conference stuff, obviously, across the country. Playoff stuff, obviously, is going to be different. So I think your records are going to look totally different, but I think all that ends up being a good thing.
Georgia has Alabama, Texas, and Ole Miss all on the road. True road games. I don't care how good you've been. That's tough, man.
Well, they haven't had a schedule that's looked like that.
No, they haven't.
Alabama's schedule hasn't looked like it's looked.
That's why I think this is going to be ridiculously fun and entertaining. But I also think people are going to lose more games, Oklahoma included. I'm putting us in that group. Like it's just going to be. I think it's going to be hyper competitive, and I think that it's going to take all us fan bases that are used to really successful seasons to adjust. I don't want to say adjust expectations, but just maybe define what like a new definition of a successful season. Like in the NFL, if you start the season 10-2, your fan base is riding high, baby. Like you are ecstatic if you are a 10-2 football team through your first 12 games in the NFL. And I don't see with how much talent is in these conferences, what these schedules look like, especially in the SEC. I just think it's going to feel more like that than oh my gosh, we didn't go undefeated in the regular season.
Yeah, it's going to be much less about what your record is and way more about did you make the 12-team playoff or not?
And is your football team healthy?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is your quarterback healthy? I mean, think of all the NFL teams where it's like, please just get to the playoffs with them
No
healthy.
kidding. Like you go 10 wins in the NFL, you're in the playoffs. I guess there's maybe some exceptions to that, but like we're good. We're good. We'll see what happens now that we're in the dance.
Just think NFL fan bases, you go 10-7, you make the playoffs, you're feeling great. I mean, the college football equivalent of that, Georgia's fan base, they're all going to want to fire Kirby Smart. It's
Yeah.
just
Could you handle an 8-4 season if you made the playoff? Can you handle that? Is that something that you could deal with?
maybe, and it may sound crazy, but that's what we all need to get used to. I don't
I
know.
know.
We're about to find out over these next couple years, right? We kind of have 2
Yep.
years of this 12-team playoff situation. Maybe there's some more conference realignment, but I don't know. I feel like we're all going to have to slightly adjust what a successful season is if you're in the SEC.
Yeah.
Looking at the AP top 25, Ted, any team that really stood out to you where you're like, man, they're ranked too high?
Ole Miss. I just I may end up being totally wrong on this, but I don't trust the bring in a bunch of 1 year players and expect it to just totally click. Now I know of all the teams in the SEC, like their schedule end up looking pretty good for them, but I don't know. I'm not and I think Lane Kiffin is a good coach, but I think he's a good coach in the right circumstances. He's been able to he's been able to be fun and low pressure, maybe try and win a big game here or there, but no one's too upset as long as you're competitive. Well, all of a sudden that's changed and the pressure is totally different. And you've brought in all these 1 year, 2 year players, transfer portal guys. I'm not sold that it's just going to go as smoothly as a lot of people think. I mean, look where they're placed. You got Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, Alabama, and then Ole Miss thrown in there between Notre Dame, Penn State, Michigan, Florida State. I mean, it's weird. Like a lot of those teams have something to back it up. You know, Georgia, as good as they've been recently, obviously, Ohio State's been really good. Oregon is on a move. Texas is on a move. Alabama was, overtime with the national champion last year in the playoff. I don't know. I feel like Ole Miss sticks out in that group at the top 10 like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
They've
And
never, they haven't done anything that any of those other teams have really accomplished.
they have, I mean, they've gone all in on
Yeah.
this season. And I don't know if the expectation is to win the SEC, but I think the expectation is to make the 12 team playoff.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately it comes out, they really have, I mean, when you look at their road games, like they go to Baton Rouge on October 12th, which, by the way, is just going to be an incredible day of college football. Same OU Texas the same day. It's going to be an awesome day of college football. But that's really their big road game. I mean, they got to go in. South Carolina's not an easy place to play, and I don't know, Fayetteville and Gainesville. I don't think either of those teams are going to be very good, but
I think Florida's going to be way better than a lot of people think they are. I
I
mean,
hope you're right.
I don't think it's going to be reflected in what their win loss says, but I think they're going to be. I mean,
People
maybe
talk
let's.
about Florida right now like they're the old Kansas in the Big 12.
I know.
You know what I mean?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. It's like they may end up being 6-6. I don't know, but they're not going to look like most 6-6 football teams in college football. It's a different type of team that they get talked about like there's no talent on the team, like they're Vanderbilt, and that's not what they are.
The reality is they may be one of the best 25 to 30 teams in college football, and they're going to be 5-7, 6-6.
Yeah, yeah.
That's just life in one of these new super conferences, man. It's just we'll see. They're scheduled their last 5 weeks. Oh my gosh.
Brutal, brutal.
As far as looking at the AP poll, Notre Dame at 7. And hear me out. Is Riley Leonard going to be an upgrade from Sam Hartman at the quarterback position? Probably. I don't know. I get the feeling that people don't know that Riley Leonard did not exactly light it up throwing the football last year at Duke. And he can really, really run, but he's coming off a significant injury. I don't know. I just don't know. Are the expectations too high for him and what he can do to elevate that offense? I do expect the defense to be good, but when I see a team that's ranked number 7 in the preseason poll, I think that team should be at least capable of winning a national title. Is that fair? And I don't think Notre Dame's capable of winning a national title.
I don't know that that's fair.
Okay. Well, we're going to find out quick what they're made
Well,
of. They go to College Station week 1.
Well, do you think Ole Miss is capable of winning a national title?
Maybe. I think they're more capable than Notre Dame.
Ole Miss, Notre Dame, Penn State are kind of right there in a row, 6, 7, 8. And I wouldn't pick any of them. I wouldn't say, I don't know. I guess with the 12-team playoff, it makes things a little bit more gray as to, because in the 14 playoff, it's like I see Georgia is the only team that's capable of winning a national championship. It's like the whole dynamic has changed. I don't know how to necessarily view it right now, but yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Maybe I should have gone with Clemson. I don't know. Clemson at 14, maybe that's right, but I just think I continue to believe that if you are not doing everything you can to make your football team as good as possible, you're just not setting your team up for success. And I know you look at their roster, they got a really talented roster. They've recruited well, but have we seen any reason to believe with what we've seen from Cade Klubnik? The defense, I assume, is going to be good. They've been good for a long time on defense. But, I mean, everything coming out of Clemson is they're relying on Bryant Wesco, like this true freshman, to be this dynamic playmaker for him at wide receiver. That doesn't instill a lot of confidence for me.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I
Well,
could see that opener against Georgia going really, really poorly
I agree.
and people having a rather different opinion of Clemson. I don't know. 14's probably right, but I could see Clemson. uh, I just don't think what should make me believe that they're not just going to be like a 15 to 20 football team for the
Yeah.
foreseeable future if Dabo Swinney's not doing everything he can do to make that roster as good as possible. I don't know, man. I think they finish closer to 25 than they do to 1.
You may be right. I will say this though for Clemson, and I really I don't know a whole lot about them, but I don't know that Dabo's approach is as crazy as it looks. How many teams have how many teams have really shot themselves in the foot development wise by going through the transfer portal? And you know, I think we've found ourselves in that problem to some degree on the offensive line. It's like you run out of guys that are developed in your system. The young guys haven't had opportunities, and I don't know. I think I'm glad he's doing it the way he is. So there's like that control group. You know what I'm saying? It's like, is it better to go transfer portal or is it better just to stick with the guys that you recruited? He's the control group of college football, and we'll see how it works. I don't know. I mean, I can see I could see his viewpoint on it. It's just, can you win games that way? Well, time will tell.
Look at you busting out some scientific method, but to drop a hypothesis on us. Look at you go.
Yes,
I
yes.
I think Clemson. I'm just not high on them with the way that Dabo's running things. I I can't believe I'm going to say this. I saw Miami at 19, and I went, maybe it's a little too low. I I think I'm starting to believe in Mario Cristobal and that staff putting everything together there at Miami. I think there's an argument that they're the most talented team in the ACC, and the only team with a higher blue chip ratio in the ACC than them is Clemson. I think the question is how big of a difference maker is Cam Ward at the quarterback position for him? I mean, how long has it been since Miami had a good quarterback?
Uh, a
If
really long time, which is one of the reasons it's hard to, until you see it, and it may not even be just a one, like you got to see maybe something sustained from them to have any confidence, putting them high at all. I don't know. It has been a long time.
if Mario could just not make the couple of game management blunders that we have come to expect from him each season, I don't know. It really feels like their season comes down to 2 games at Florida in the opener, and then they've got Florida State on October 26th. If Cam Ward is that dude, then I think they are a talented football team and have a good chance to win the ACC, and maybe a team that ends up finishing in more in the top 10 as opposed to closer to 20 like they are checking in at 19 in the preseason poll. I don't know. I'm starting to believe in Miami, and I don't like it at all, Ted.
No, I hear you. Let
I've
me
watched
ask
too
you,
many Cam Ward highlights.
uh, what do you think about Kansas at 22? If Jalen Daniels is healthy throughout the season, I think
I
that they may be a little too low.
I could see it both ways. Kotelnicki left. He's a Penn State. To say that I love that man's offense is an understatement.
I know.
Now they are, and I talked to Lance Leipold about it a while back. Like they are carrying over a lot of what they did, but it's hard to replace a creative guy like that. It
That's
just
true.
is. And Jalen Daniels, he hasn't been like the track record of health has not been great. There's Jason
No,
Bean. He's not walking through that
he's
door.
not there. Yep.
He's running QB runs for Shane Steichen in Indianapolis right now, and he looks great. But I am I'm still skeptical with Kansas because of the defense.
Yeah.
Until I see them play a higher level of defense, and it's gotten better, but I don't know. It's just hard to believe that they're going to go win the Big 12 if they can't play a little better defense. But I
Yeah.
think 22 is about right.
Is Iowa too high at 25?
I I don't know. Big shakeup at offensive coordinator. What's it going to look like?
I know.
I know
They
this.
here's
That defense is going to be legit.
there is not a single team in college football that has benefited from the division system more than Iowa in the Big Ten. And that is about to change for them in a big way.
I don't think they're going to like it. I don't
No,
know.
they're not going to like it.
They are. This is what I know about Iowa. They are going to play really good defense, and their fans are going to be pissed off about what their offense.
Yep. Checks out.
I just hope we're not Iowa this season.